fellow G's? This is Edgar Zuniga from News Across the Galaxy, and guess what? It's time for a new season. That means that all your expectations, all the promise of a new year, and all your dreams of a sixth MLS Cup are about to get completely crushed. Because for our first game of the season, we are hosting the new face that runs the place, apparently. Inter Miami, CF, right? CF. And here to discuss Inter Miami is Pieter Brown from Football Miami TV. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. It must be exciting times down there in Miami. Well, the Orlando guys would have me say Fort Lauderdale, but out of respect for you, I'll say Miami. And so, what's it like? I mean, there must be so much buzz right now.
Yeah, it's great. It's Orlando is they've got a big mouth, but look, they were bad for a long time, so they need to just hype down a little bit up there. But yeah, we currently play in Fort Lauderdale, but they're building a stadium in Miami currently as we speak. So how many teams can say they have two MLS ready stadiums? And we will have two in the near future. So it's exciting down here. Exciting because who doesn't want an ownership that's willing to spend, that's willing to go out and get Messi, Suarez, Busquets, and Alba, and it sounds like it's a done deal. Redondo, it's they just haven't officially announced it, but everybody says it's done. So who doesn't want an ownership like that? And yeah, we've got a lot of haters now, so that's part of the fun of being a Miami fan as well. But that's something I think that LA Galaxy fans should be able to understand, because I think you guys were in a similar boat when you had David Beckham.
Oh yeah, David Beckham is a lightning rod for admiration and criticism, both at the same time. I mean, he's just a lightning rod in general. So I mean, I understand. Even to this day, there's a lot of people that like hate LA Galaxy, like because Galaxy fans. I mean, there's not much for us to hold on to these days, so we always say like,
no,
"Oh, we
it's
got the
been pretty
five
bad.
titles."
But hey, you still got that Beckham statue out front, right?
Yeah.
We'll go
At
put a
least he's
pink
not
shirt
alone
on him,
anymore. We got
and then
Landon
you guys
Donovan
feel
next to
good.
him. But before we started talking about Inter Miami, before you and I got on, we were talking about how you got started with football down there in Miami. Um, and I remember I've been a fan since before the league started, and I feel like I'm kind of like a historian, for MLS. I remember Miami Fusion very well. I remember covering games with them and with Pibe and all the other players. The interesting players were coming through there. So, but the sad thing is that for a lot of the younger fans, they don't remember what it was like. Miami
Right?
Fusion, they weren't around for very long, and the internet
No.
was still in its pre-teen years, so there wasn't a lot of social media at the time. So we didn't really get a taste of football in Miami. Um, how would you describe Miami footballing culture these days compared to what it was like back then with Miami Fusion?
I mean, it's night and day. And I go back even further than the Fusion because I'm old. And so I go back to the old, Fort Lauderdale Strikers, going to see them as a kid in the 70s at Lockhart Stadium, which is now Chase Stadium. Same piece of land, different stadium. But so, I mean, I've seen every incarnation of professional soccer down here. And so, we've seen the growth and there, we hit a little bit of a high with the Miami Fusion for at least one game, when we sold it out, and it kind of died off. But then, the Fusion getting contracted, a lot of people felt like, oh, it's because there wasn't enough fan support, and that wasn't the case. It was just an owner that didn't have deep enough pockets to withstand those lean years at MLS. So there was still a fan base there, but it's grown so much since then. I mean, we've always had a Latin American culture down here, but I think it's even just grown exponentially. The Brazilian community here is gigantic. I mean, I married one, and there's every kind of Latino community you can imagine is down here. And also back then in the Fusion days, you didn't have in any of the MLS teams really, you didn't have that fan culture that you currently have. Yeah, we had a group called the Afusionados, and they did some of that, but you didn't have that electric energy that Southern Legion, Vice City, the Siege, all these supporters groups, and LA has the same type of thing. So it's great. It's grown so much. The fans are way more knowledgeable than they were back in the old days because we've all got it at our fingertips. Everybody's got the games anywhere you want streaming somehow. You can follow any team you want in the world. So everybody's super knowledgeable down here. And yeah, so it's grown a lot. It's amazing because especially with you bring in a player like Messi and that just ignites it to a whole nother level. Because literally a year and a half ago, or less than that, I guess maybe a year ago, you'd mention Inter Miami to some people, you'd wear a pink shirt, and they still question it. They still wonder what that is because Inter Miami as a brand had not really worried so much about branding locally, which has always been one of my pet peeves. Brand locally before you think global, but they never did. They're like, we're going global. They set their sights on Messi over 2 years ago and working on that. They weren't worried about local marketing, and they just wanted that global marketing. Well, they got it, and now you walk around with a pink shirt anywhere in the world, and everybody knows what the heck it is.
So it's interesting because you kind of answered one of my questions
I
further
do
on,
that.
but I still wanted to ask. You mentioned all the different supporters there, and all the buzz surrounding the team right now. So I was just curious, what's a typical game day like at Lockhart? Um, and also, since you mentioned Lockhart, and I don't want to digress because I know I want you to answer my question, but hearing you mention the history of that stadium, I don't think it gets the credit, I guess, or the honor and respect that it's supposed to because it's. I mean, after what happened with Miami Fusion, I know it was abandoned and all that. They had so much overgrowth, and it looked like one of those like abandoned places, right? And here it is. It has got some new life, at least temporarily, but
Mm-hmm.
that has been a source for a lot of football, right? Soccer in the area, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm sad about is that the ownership, Jorge Mas, said that they would honor the rich history of this stadium, of this piece of land. And they don't. They haven't. I mean, little things could be easy. Just put up some placards around the stadium of what what it looked like throughout the years. Have uh images up there of Ray Hudson as a striker, Ray Hudson as a fusion coach, things like that. Carlos Valderrama, just mixed in, nothing major. They haven't done any of that. So really, they've ignored the past. They said they were going to honor it. Now there's hope that when they build Miami Freedom Park, which is currently under construction near the Miami International Airport, they do talk about having a South Florida soccer museum. So hopefully those teams will get the respect, the strikers, and there's several incarnations of the strikers after Miami Fusion folded. Kind of a new version of Miami FC generated, and they were playing in Miami, but eventually they gradually, like a lot of teams do, they moved north to Fort Lauderdale and they rebranded it as Fort Lauderdale Strikers. So it was still being used. That Lockhart was still being used for quite some time. And I actually did a video inside the stadium once it was dilapidated and run down. And it was sad. It was sad. You had tumbleweeds, basically. You had trees growing in the middle of the pitch. It was crazy. And so yeah, they really haven't honored the past, which I wish they would do. I wish this ownership would purchase the branding for the Fort Lauderdale Strikers or the Miami Fusion and kind of honor that in some way. But I don't think. I think MLS in general looks as the Fusion as a black mark. That and the Tampa Bay Mutiny. They don't talk about them. So I
Yeah.
think it's just a black, the redheaded stepchild of the league.
I really enjoyed actually I really enjoyed it when those teams would come to play at the Rose Bowl. I felt that they offer like a different feel. There was something different about having them there, and not just in the league, but just come to the stadium and the colorful personalities that they had with them, and it really felt like a death in the family when both franchises had to fold, or they were pretty much shuttered by
Yeah,
MLS.
look, I'll tell you. I had a conversation with Chris Henderson. You know, Miami Fusion, great. Colorado Rapids, great. our current general manager here at Inter Miami. I had a conversation with him, not so much about Inter Miami, about the Fusion, just sitting there talking to him about that stuff. And he still, to this day, and several of those Fusion players, Jim Rooney, the captain of the Fusion, friendly with him as well, they feel like that is the best. The last season
Oh yeah.
when we won the Supporter Shield, our last season, they feel like that is the best MLS team ever. Like we could still compete and win trophies in today's MLS. They feel like now, of course, these are guys that played on that team, so they're somewhat biased,
Yeah.
but you know,
No, it's an
they
argument to be
they
made.
that was a fun team to watch, especially that last year. It was amazing, a lot of fun, and if it wasn't for Landon Donovan with the San Jose Earthquakes, we could have potentially won the MLS Cup. In which case, that team may not have gotten contracted.
Yeah. No, that I remember hearing that. Years later, you hear about that team, and you hear about like they were fighting to stay alive, literally
Yeah,
stay alive, keep the franchise alive. And I remember hearing Ray Hudson talk about it, and in his interesting way of describing things, and how when they lost eventually, right, it felt like a lot more than just you lose a game, you lose a playoff game. It just felt like you just lost a, like a lot, like it was like a huge pit in your stomach kind of thing.
yeah. Listen, 2001 was when the we got shut down. Miami Fusion got shut down. That was also the year I got married. And as I'm dating my wife, I'm telling her now, she was we had a long distance relationship, but as I'm dating her, I'm like, look, once we get married, you're marrying the Miami Fusion too. We're going to games. This is part of our life. You got to be into it. And she was ready for it, all that kind of stuff. And literally, we found out in December, I think it was, of 2020 of 2001 that the Fusion was shutting down, and literally like about 3 weeks later, I got married, and I was like, well, I guess you've got your free time back.
Well, I mean, she must really enjoy wearing pink these days, though.
Hey, we're all, I was never a big fan of pink, but I got a lot of it now.
So, going back to my earlier question, what's a typical game day like with so many different cultures and different peoples coming together, the supporters? What's it like there before a game?
It's a lot of Spanish. There's not as much different cultures as you would think. I mean, sometimes I don't speak Spanish. I've grown up in South Florida all my life, and you'd think I should, but I don't. And so sometimes you're on the outside of things, but there's a good mix. I will tell you, I was involved with helping to create one of the supporters groups, the Southern Legion, and so that group is fairly well mixed. So regardless of your nationality, you'll feel welcome and all that stuff. There's others like Vice City, which is probably the bigger of the groups down here. They're predominantly Argentinian, Spanish. They don't good luck with English over there. I mean, the guys speak English, but their chosen language is going to be Spanish. Um, but there's luckily, the main parking lot at Chase Stadium. I almost called it Drive Pink, but we changed the name just recently. Is a big gravel parking lot, and so a lot of people are out there tailgating. Luckily, you can tailgate there. Like in Orlando, they can't tailgate. They're in the middle of the city. They're in
Yeah.
parking garages. I've been to some games there. But so there's a lot of tailgating going on. Everybody's got their little cliques and stuff like that. But so it's a lot of fun before the game. But personally, I'm a let's get into the stadium as quick as possible. Let's enjoy the festivities that Inter Miami has put forth. They've got a really nice pre-game festivity area, stuff like that. So they do a good job of bringing it together. But it's interesting is how supporters clubs just come out of nowhere just when you sign Messi. So we've got a supporters group called, I think it's the Messiahs. And I mean, they're there. They're not Inter Miami fans. They're wearing pink, but really they're just there for Messi. They're Messi fans and Messi fans only. We got a lot of that.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. We had a lot of that with the different personalities that have come to
Yeah.
LA. Speaking of personalities, how has it been with David Beckham in charge? I mean, he's been there from the very beginning, obviously, but what's it been when having him in charge? And number one, and number two, when Inter Miami faces LA Galaxy, do you think he has a conflict of interest, or is his focus solely on Inter Miami success?
Well, when he goes to Los Angeles, obviously he's going to have respect for the club. You guys got his statue out there. I mean, come on, there's a love there. But yeah, he's got to be focused on Inter Miami. I'm hoping that he makes that trip because look, Beckham is not at every home game. Some people thought he'd be at every home game. The man's busy. He's he's hawking alcohol, the sunglasses, all kinds of stuff. He's busy doing other whatever he does. But so he's at a handful of games down here. But you figure having his name attached to your team, it definitely helps with the marketing. It definitely helps with, hopefully landing some players. He's not out there, really, uh, he talks about it a little bit that he's not going to go out there and recruit. But what he does is he'll sit there and talk to the players and that maybe the team's interested in and try to, get them to see what the values are of the team and things like that and what life is like over here and stuff like that. But he's not going in for the hard sell. That's for Jorge Mas, our owner. That's for him to do the hard sell with Messi and things like that. I think because he's sensitive to ruining whatever personal relationships he has with these players that are of that higher level of players. But he obviously drew a lot of attention, helped get the when you're trying to get the city to back a stadium proposal, it doesn't hurt to have Beckham walk in there with his perfectly tailored suit, walking in there with every girl even the commissioners of the city wanting to get selfies with them. I mean, that doesn't hurt to get your deal across the table at all. So Beckham has been, if it wasn't for Beckham, there would be no team down here. He had that, because he signed with LA, he got that what I like to call his Groupon deal. Remember Groupons? I don't even know if they're a thing anymore,
Yeah.
but he got that, $40 million buy-in for an MLS team when the year that we came in, they were being sold at like 350. And so we got it at 40 million. So I don't know if an owner would have come into this market and said, all right, I'm going to put down 350 or north of that, $350 million to buy a franchise. They all only had to put up 40 million because that's what Beckham was able to provide. So without Beckham, I don't think there is a team down here.
Yeah, and it really felt like he really had to fight for the franchise to even come to fruition because I remember for a while people were saying, first, well, for a lot of outsiders, they were saying, MLS had their shot down there and it didn't happen.
Right.
Why are you going back there? Why are you going back there? It's not going to happen. But he was very adamant about wanting to bring it back to Miami and making it a thing, and he willed it into existence, right? At least that's the feeling I get.
Yeah, no, he thought he came in here thinking it was going to be easy. He thought it was going to be easy. You think Miami with our Latin culture, it's a no-brainer. It makes sense. It's going to be easy. They're going to want me, Beckham. They're going to love me. They're going to want me to come in. But it's hard to build in Miami. And they were not going to give us the franchise without a stadium deal. And so, that had to be the number one priority. And so they pick a location. And they picked a spot that was on right across from the Royal Caribbean, which is ironic, the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line's office building. And they felt like the stadium would block their view of the ocean. They didn't like it. So they, with their power, stopped it from happening. Ironic that they're now our jersey sponsor, but they stopped a stadium from being built in a specific location on the water. Would have been beautiful near Bayside, if you're familiar with that. And so they got hit time after time at every single location because they wanted to build it next to where the Miami Heat play. But then there's people across the street that just bought multi-million-dollar condos that don't want their ocean view blocked by a stadium. It's already semi-blocked because of Miami Heat Arena. They didn't want another stadium to block their view. So that got, so he just kept getting hit time after time with stumbling blocks. The credit to Beckham is that he didn't quit because this deal was almost dead really, really quick.
Okay. Do you feel that Inter Miami is now the new face of MLS, or do you think that when foreigners think of MLS, LA Galaxy still comes to mind?
Galaxy, DC United, those kind of clubs are, your historical clubs with MLS. I think, Miami is that new hot shot on in the league. I mean, we owners that are willing to splash money want to be able to spend even more money, and the league obviously holding them back. So they want to be that next LA Galaxy. I think there's a lot of ownership in this league that's still holding on to the old ways, not wanting to spend. And these new owners that are coming in, like Jorge Mas, they want to splash, and they want to see they take what the LA Galaxy, all respect to what the LA Galaxy did, Kobe Jones and stuff. I've talked to him as well. He's a great guy. All respect to what the Galaxy's done, and they just want to take that to the next level.
Okay. Um, Now that we're talking about the LA Galaxy in Miami, and you got to think about the preparation that it takes to, for these games, especially MLS. And everybody down here was keeping an eye on what was going on in Miami, and we were looking at your preseason tour. And my goodness, it was kind of rough, right? Did those heavy losses in the preseason bother you much, or was there some like minimized level of concern?
Sure, you're concerned. For me personally, yeah, I was somewhat concerned, but not upset. I think it just, I they again, this is marketing over the team. That's global brand awareness, trying to build that, and not really paying attention to what the team needs, what the players need. This was more about, branding than anything else. So, it wasn't the best scenario. They probably should have played more teams like Hong Kong 11 and the old Newell's Old Boys, a little bit easier maybe competition, because going against the Saudi clubs that don't have any spending limits, they could bring in the players that they want. And so yeah, you could say we got embarrassed in some ways, but some no other MLS team has ever gone on a tour like that. And so somebody had to go out there and do it. And Inter Miami did it. And sure, it didn't go perfect, but that first time never goes right. Now other teams can see and learn and figure out what to do better. Inter Miami can learn and know what to do better. So coming into this last game, we played against Real Salt Lake. Yeah, we're concerned. They didn't gel that great. You didn't see the connection with Messi and Suarez that you're expecting. Busquets got hurt. Farias is out for the season. Our young prospect. Benjamin Kromaski's out for 2 to 3 months with a sports hernia. And so there was injuries that happened, a lot of travel. So yeah, there's concerns, but you know what? After this last game we just played against the Real Salt Lake, the connections are starting to happen. There is something there. The competition, while it may have been looked a little embarrassing, that some of the competition maybe was too tough for what we weren't ready, right? And but branding came above team building, but they looked really good against Real Salt Lake. Granted, Real Salt Lake is not some world beater. They're just maybe a average to below average team right now, I think. But you saw the connections coming together. You see where the promise is with these guys.
Okay. So one of our co-hosts, he had a question for you. He said he asks, aside from Leo Messi, which players on the offensive side do you feel need to have a breakout season in order for Miami to have success? I mean, Campana, because Suarez is on one knee, Gomez. Uh, what do you think?
So I'm a big Campana fan, so much so to where I put him on the back of my shirt last year. So I'm really hoping for him. I would like for Tata to get you know Suarez and him on the field at the same time, but Tata likes to play with one forward, so it's probably not going to happen. Suarez with his bad knees, you imagine Campana's going to get enough time. So I think Campana needs to have a good year, but also really the guy that had a really breakout time last year in the League's Cup is Robert Taylor.
Oh yeah.
And he also scored a goal against Real Salt Lake. Look out for him. He's going to have a breakout year, I believe. I don't think he has to have. He's going to have. Um, Gomez, he gives the ball away a lot, but he showed a lot of promise for Paraguay with the Olympics pre-qualifying matches. So you figure if you could do it there, let's do it here. Come on. But he does give the ball away a lot. So, but these are the U22 initiative players. You expect a lot out of someone like Gomez or even Aviles, who has a lot of growing up to do in our defense. Our defense is weak, so we're going to have to outscore a lot of player teams.
Okay. We're running out of time here, but just wanted to ask you real quick. Um, lightning round, right? What real expectations do you have for this season in a very strong Eastern Conference? And what is your prediction for the match against LA Galaxy this Sunday?
Well, I mean, we're winning all championships, right? I mean, it's the pundits have
Yeah.
said it. We're winning them all. It's never been done before. We're going to win everything. No, seriously. Obviously, Champions Cup is a priority. That the coaches even said that. This team has showed that in a short tournament, Leagues Cup, for example, they can really rally together and do well. The MLS Cup may be a bit of a challenge at times because, we're going to miss some of these players. A lot of our players are with national teams, including Robert Taylor. So, we're going to miss a lot of players. And how deep are we? I'm not sure. We're not deep in defense. We're deep in midfield, but not in defense. So I think realistically, I'd say I want 2 trophies, but maybe only 1 trophy this year is probably a realistic. But if we only win 1 because of these unrealistic expectations that we're going to win everything, it's going to be considered a failure.
So what's your prediction for this game against LA
Prediction.
Galaxy?
So it's funny you say that because I was actually looking, I was curious. Sports betting is now legal in Florida. It hasn't been in the past. So I was looking at what's on the Hard Rock Bet app, and it's actually pretty even there, the odds. So it's according to the betting world, I think they're thinking of a tie, but I think we could definitely come out with. I'm obviously hoping for a victory, but I don't expect it to be a lot. Maybe 2-1, something like that. That's what we've already. You can't say that. Hey, you're traveling a long distance. They did a lot of that. They're used to it now. They did a preseason tour where they traveled thousands and thousands of miles. So they're ready for that. So I'd say I'm going to go out and predict 2-1 Inter Miami, but it would not shock me if it's a tie. I don't think we're losing. I don't think you guys are good enough to beat us.
Yeah, LA Galaxy is still coming together. They just
Right.
added some pieces this week.
Yep.
So it's gonna take the team a while to gel. I think realistically speaking, a 2-2 draw would be a great result for us against the star-studded team like Miami, and that's what my prediction is. 2-2 draw. Sorry, a lot of fans are expecting to beat Miami, but it's gonna be a lot of pink at the stadium, and
home game everywhere we go.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Peter, for joining us today. I know, sorry for the contracted time. I'm looking forward to having a much longer conversation in future instances. But thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell fans that are interested where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, we're at Football Miami TV on all social medias. We're a YouTube channel, full-fledged YouTube channel. We do podcasts, we do food reviews, we do stadium construction reviews, everything like that. Plus, we also have a Spanish channel, Football Miami TV ES. So we're doing a channel in English and a channel in Spanish as well. So, but everything on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook can be found at Football Miami TV. And so, yeah. Lots of fun over down here.
Well, thanks again for joining us. And to all the G's, thank you so much for tuning in and watching our conversation with Peter. We look forward to seeing a lot of you at the stadium. And Peter, good luck this season, but not against us. And we look forward to seeing you again sometime in the future. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me anytime.